Good morning, traders. Welcome to Trading Together. I'm Mel Gacee. Today is Wednesday, April the 22nd. How's everybody doing this morning? I just want to welcome you. And if you are here this morning, I would love it if you would drop your name in the chat, say hi, let's get to know each other. This is a friendly, interactive stream. My goal here is to help traders of all levels. I teach, I trade. It's what I do for a living. I have my Series 7. I'm a licensed stockbroker and I day trade for a living. So my style of trading is scalping and day trading. And I will teach you from that perspective. There's lots of different ways to trade, but that's how I do it. And I'll teach you from my perspective, and any questions or comments you might have, then you just drop them in the chat. Now, if I do take trades today, they're going to be, for example, for learning purposes. You can choose to follow them, but that's going to be at your own risk. What I'm doing is just presenting to you how I make decisions and how I do it. So that's how this stream works. But welcome. Andrew is here. Good morning. Gavilan is here. Good morning. Good to see you guys. Thanks for joining. Thanks for saying hi. All right, let's take a look at our charts. We opened up with a gap up this morning, pretty strong gap up this morning after we got an extension on the ceasefire. According to President Trump, there was an extension on the ceasefire with Iran. So the market really bumped up after hours there, but I will say we're beginning to see some signs of weakness. And you can't even really call it weakness. I would say more signs of some slowing down. We're kind of just building a little top potentially, doesn't have to be. And we're just kind of slowing down. So we'll take a look at that daily chart and I'll show you what I mean. Right now, we are 54 points elevated over yesterday's close. So we're 54 points high. And that is pretty, that's significant, 0.7%. Let's see what the NASDAQ is doing. And a lot of times the NASDAQ will be our leader. Not always, but a lot of times. Okay, nice drop here. I am in an averaged put that I'm watching for to get out of. They are certainly moving it slowly. Good morning, Val. Good to see you. Andrew, is that a question? Are you asking if I'm still in the put? Yes, I am. I took an average from before. Yeah, I took an average over here somewhere, and I'm just about to break even on it. If it keeps going down below the VWAP, I will. Let's see if we can get that to go. Matt, good morning. Good to see you. All right. So while I wait for this, with an eagle eye here, I'm watching this VWAP. So right here, you can see the price has come down. This white line is the VWAP. That stands for volume weighted average price. It is a moving average, but it also calculates volume and it gives volume a weight. So the VWAP, again, it is a moving average with some added weight given for volume. So I watch the VWAP pretty carefully. That's one of my mile markers. When we are over the VWAP, and this is really broad brush stroke here, but when we're over the VWAP, we're generally on the bullish side. When we're under the VWAP, we're generally on the bearish side. That's broad brush strokes there. Doesn't always mean that. And we certainly can see reversals above and below the VWAP. Hi, Craig. Good morning. But that's in general, that is one of the ways that I use the VWAP. All right, cute bounce right off the VWAP here. And we've really been holding that since the open. You can see we dipped below it a bit here, bounced, dipped below it, bounced, touched it, bounced, and came down here, touched it, and bounced. So we have not broken the VWAP yet today. That is a bullish sign. And of course, we already know we're bullish because we're up 58 points, right? Okay. So what is going on today? Let's take a look at our daily chart. It's always good to zoom out when you're not quite sure what's going on. Every day I take a look at our daily and I try to gauge what the sentiment of the market is. So you can see here, this is the SPX, that is the S&P 500. You can see that we're trying to hold a little bit of a top. I drew this line this morning because I could see that we were holding this close on Friday, the high on Monday, the open on Tuesday, and now the high on Wednesday. So far, we're sort of holding in this area. We haven't broken through it and we haven't let it go yet. So we're not negative yet, but we're starting to see signs of a slowdown, a little traffic jam, right? A little congestion is starting to build up here at this level. So that's what I'm watching closely. We could see a rejection from here. We could just as easily see a push to a new high. We're only a stone's throw away. 71.47 is the high that we need to beat. That's the all-time high. Again, we're looking at the S&P 500. 71.47 all-time high. We are within 25 points, 24 points. So we're right there. They can do that just like they can do it in 1 bar, 1 minute. If they choose to, they could. So they're not yet, but that doesn't mean we won't. Now the NASDAQ looks a little different. And I was just saying, sometimes we follow the NASDAQ. I'll explain that in just a second, but NASDAQ looking a little different. We've got this stop right here at the high, kind of like what we have on the SPX. Stops right here. Then we get the top at the next day. That's Monday. The top the next day on Tuesday. But today it's like the bottom, and we got a little push off of that. We got a little push off of this little top here. So the NASDAQ looking a little differently. We could follow the NASDAQ. We could turn and push up and go make a new all-time high like the NASDAQ did today. Jumped up there, made a new all-time high. SPX has not done that yet. So we're right here in the zone holding. They're holding it sideways. They're not going anywhere yet. Not down, not up. So sometimes, a lot of times when we see that congestion moving sideways, we can see a bounce from there. That does happen. So right now it's sideways. We got to just wait and see what they're going to do with this. With the NASDAQ making a new high, it is possible that the SPX does the same thing. All right. Let's look at the Dow real quick. This is the Dow. Dow looking a little bit more like the S&P, with the biggest difference on the Dow right here. Our all-time high was made back here in February. We did the drop on the Dow just like we did on the SPX, and we did the V-shaped recovery just like we did on the SPX, but we did not recover the high. Dow has not recovered their high yet, and Dow is giving us a little slowdown here in the last couple of days, just like what we're seeing on the SPX. So that is, that's just where the Dow is sitting. Could the Dow come up here and also tag a new all-time high? Absolutely. It's not too far away. It's right here. And let's take a look at the Russell. I watch all of the indices to get an idea of basically the leadership. What is everybody doing? So Russell just made an all-time high yesterday, new all-time high yesterday. That's what the Russell is doing. So it did the same climb. The difference on the Russell is this little push looks a little bit higher than ours. And their all-time high came yesterday. Ours came on Friday. So similar, really similar. But then the Russell gave us a pullback after its all-time high. And today, if we zoom in, take a look at this candle that the Russell is making today. It looks a bit bearish, doesn't it? It came up, hit this open that we had yesterday, and then rejected, and it's looking a bit bearish. Now, we can't always look to the Russell for leadership. Usually the Russell is not the leader, usually. And I'll show you why the NASDAQ tends to lead the S&P 500. I'll show you why. If we take a look at what is in the NASDAQ. So here's a picture. Good morning, Dan. Good to see you. Here's a picture of this is a heat map. It is a visual representation of the index, of what's inside of it. So this is the NASDAQ 100, and these are the main players. Who are they? Well, they're the Magnificent Seven: NVIDIA, Google, Meta, Amazon, Tesla, Apple, Microsoft. These are the Mag Sevens, the so-called Magnificent Sevens. And these are weighted inside of the NASDAQ. They all carry a weight. In other words, the value of the NASDAQ is made up of these guys by how much of the index is invested in this particular stock. So NVIDIA is one of the biggest. Google actually is the biggest if you take Class C and Class A together. Google, G-O-O-G-L and G-O-O-G, that's Class A and Class C. If you put those together, those make up the biggest part of the NASDAQ. But you can see the size of this map showing you what the weight of the stock is. So, of course, the NASDAQ is the tech index. It holds the tech stocks, the big tech stocks. Now, the S&P 500 is an index of 500 stocks, 500 big, mega, large cap stocks, big stocks, and it is also weighted. Hatman is here. Good morning. And Andrew wants to know, where can we get the heat map? I get it on Thinkorswim, Andrew, right? If you click on Market Watch right here, it'll give you the heat map. And then you've got a couple of choices here for the heat map. So if you take a look at the S&P 500 and the way it's broken up, you can see certainly many more, right? There's 500 stocks here, but we get also weighting. So NVIDIA, Broadcom, Google, Amazon, Tesla, Microsoft, and Apple. These guys, if you drew a diagonal line underneath these big tech stocks, you would see that these guys hold roughly 40% of the value of the S&P 500. So as the NASDAQ goes, because it holds these tech stocks, so goes the S&P 500 usually, right? There are some other things in the S&P 500, of course, right? We've got financials, we've got consumer staples, we've got healthcare, we've got consumer discretionary, utilities, real estate. These are what are known as the sectors. And these also do their own thing. So you can see industrials today, not looking so good, kind of overall looking kind of red here. But of course, tech here looking very bright green, which is why we see the index rising today, why we're up. So that is the heat map. And let me get back to my ES here. We're coming back down to the VWAP again. I would sure like to break it this time. That would be great. All right. just have not been able to break this level yet. It's really holding here. All right. VIX is also elevated today. Now here's something that looks a little different with the VIX. So that I'm going to put the VIX up here in the right-hand corner. I want to make sure you guys can see it. Yeah, you can see it. All right, so I've got the VIX up here in the right-hand corner. I'm going to zoom out, and I want you to notice what's different about the VIX today. Let's take a look at these two charts. First of all, let's go over what is the VIX. Most of you already know this, but for those of you who don't, it is known as the volatility index. It gauges the nickname for the VIX is the fear gauge. It gauges the anxiety of the market, the fear in the market. When the market is scared, the VIX rises and the market drops. When the market is happy, complacent, the VIX drops and the market rises. They have an inverse relationship to each other. When we see the VIX not behaving inversely and behaving in the way it's doing today, look at this, what it's doing. What are we getting on the VIX? We're getting a slow rise. From the open, we had this little channel, we dipped down, we got right back in the channel, and we're getting a slow rise. When we see the market rising at the same time as the VIX, we can normally expect change. Usually that's the best way for me to say it. When I've seen this happen before, when the VIX kind of goes rogue and does its own thing or starts going with the market, usually we're in for some sort of volatility or a spike on the VIX. And it's already unusual that the VIX has been sitting at 19 all day with the market up almost 1%. That's a little odd that the VIX is kind of up this high while the market is rising. That's unusual. So we have to pay attention. Now, it doesn't mean that anything wild is going to happen today. It could. We could get a rug pull. We could see a fast drop on the market. Could happen. Doesn't have to happen today. But when the VIX starts doing this kind of weird stuff, it's time to pay attention. So I'm watching. And with this kind of slowdown that we're getting here at the all-time highs, it is possible that we see some sort of reversal. Now, the other thing that's happening is we're getting Tesla earnings tonight. That's a big deal. Tesla is one of the companies that I think kind of doesn't have to obey its fundamentals. And what I mean when I say that is a company is only worth what it's worth, right? And as these valuations climb and climb and climb, as we've seen, companies like NVIDIA and of course the Mag 7s, we see that these valuations they're getting a little out of control. And we value a company, we use the PE ratio. So that's the price to earnings ratio that we want to see at a certain level. Investors want to see their PE ratios at a certain level. PE ratios on these Mag 7 stocks, these mega techs, are like off the charts. Ridiculous PE ratios. When the PE ratios are especially high, basically what that means is it's going to take a long time to get your money back. Now, when we're full of all of this frothy bubble AI magic, then yes, these stocks keep climbing and we're not really looking at the PE ratio. But at some point, the rubber is going to have to meet the road. At some point, these guys are not going to be able to support this kind of valuation. And we start to see the cracks during earnings season. So earnings season is when these big companies have to actually report what they're earning, what is their profit, what is their bottom line, what is their capital expenditure. And then during the earnings call or after the earnings call, we get what's called forward guidance. That is where the CEO or the CFO comes on for the company and says, this, Elon Musk says, or Jensen Huang says, we're going to build data centers on the moon or out in space, whatever he said, something wild like that, right? We're going to build data centers out in space. Like, okay, whatever. But that's forward guidance. And investors look at forward guidance, especially on the Mag 7s, very carefully. They're looking at forward guidance very carefully. With these big trillion-dollar companies, that's what investors want to hear. They want to hear from Elon Musk. They want to hear from Jensen Huang. They want to hear from Tim Cook, who just stepped down. They want to know what is the big plan going forward. And so if the forward guidance sounds good and Jensen Huang can convince people that we're going to put data centers in space, and Elon Musk can convince people that Rosie the robot is coming to their homes next month, then investors will continue to buy the hype. And that is what's happened. So Tesla is one of the companies that I think doesn't necessarily have to obey fundamentals because it's not just a car company. Elon Musk has done a great job of reinventing Tesla from just a car company into an AI, SpaceX, like very high tech company. He's done a great job of trying to rebrand, if you will, rebrand Tesla. So Tesla earnings come out tonight as the first of the Mag 7. So Tesla has gotten a little climb this morning. It's sitting at about 1% elevated. We can see that it's kind of going sideways right now, sitting at 390. There's a lot of action up at 400 calls and puts, and there is a lot of implied volatility on Tesla 22. So we're looking at a pretty large implied move on Tesla. And that's going to kick us off. And so we're going to get the feel for what our earnings are going to look like going forward for the rest of the Mag 7. All right, let's get back to the ES here. Just still moving sideways. Look at how sideways this has been for a long time. All right. So watch for Tesla earnings tonight. That'll happen after the close. That will probably affect the market. Let's take a look at the rest of the earnings coming up here. We've got, let me get to next week's earnings. All right, next week we're going to see Amazon and Apple Wednesday and Thursday after the close. And then I think the following week we'll start to see the rest of them. So anyway, the earnings will start rolling in here slowly over the next 2 weeks. And we're going to be paying very close attention to that. All right. Intel reports Thursday after the close. That'll be a big one. Yeah, that's about it. So there you have it. That'll be what we're watching. All right, David, still in the put. Yes, I am, David, and I averaged it. So I'm really would love to see a break of this VWAP here. That would get me at break even, but I haven't gotten it yet. Just being patient. There is a lot of sideways movement here. And again, that it can just give us another leg up. Like I said, NASDAQ has already hit their new all-time high today, and we could do that too. The SPX could do that today as well. They're just holding it sideways right in through here. I just need a little break of this VWAP and I would be happy. And as far as trading, as you guys know, I don't love taking trades when we're in sideways chop like this. It's not my favorite because then we get stuck like I am now. I'm stuck until it lets me out. I'm going to take a quick look at volumes. Highest volume on the option chain is sitting at the 710 calls. And then the next highest sitting at the 711 calls. And then we've got puts at 708 and 709. So that's when you see that kind of volume on both sides, that's usually when we are seeing this chop, this sideways chop. Good morning. Let's see, Nick, right? Freaky is Nick. When did I take a put? I took a put earlier this morning. I've been stuck in it for a while somewhere. Where was I? Let me take a look. Right here. Of course, at the bottom. I took a put right here at the bottom. That's my favorite thing to do, take puts at the bottom. All right. So as far as entering any new trades, I'm going to give this a little time for the range to break. It'll either break to this upside right up here over 710, or it's going to need to break right here at 709. It tried to break it a little bit earlier, tried to break the VWAP there, but did not. Gave us a bounce. It happens, yeah. Yes, it does. So gave us a little bounce here off the VWAP, and we've just been ranging. Nothing here to do but wait for the range to break. Let's take a quick look at the Qs and see what we're doing here. Yeah, similar ranging here. Ranging, but just made a new high of day right here on the Qs. And I think that's the all-time high as well. Let's take a look at the daily. Yep. Look at that. I mean, the SPY chart and the SPX chart, it's parabolic, but this Qs chart, doesn't that angle look like just insane? Straight up. That is wild. So yeah, Qs making a new all-time high. I imagine that we should follow. The S&P should follow with a new all-time high. We just haven't done it yet. They're really holding this top here. All right, a little pullback from the new high. Qs are pretty elevated over their VWAP. Palantir giving us a nice run today, up 3.6%. What's interesting is that oil is up today, and recently, since the conflict, oil and the in the market have had an inverse relationship. So oil has gone up and the market has gone down. But today we've got oil going up and the market going up. Another bit of a weird divergence from what's been normal. So we've got the VIX going up with the market and we've got oil going up with the market. Something is off. Someone's not telling the truth here. Who is it? Who is not telling the truth? All right. SPY still ranging. Let's see if we can get another test of the VWAP here. ES did the opposite candle to SPY at that high volume at 929. Yeah, that's the other thing I've noticed, Nick, is that I have also noticed some divergence from the ES to the SPY, which is not normal, not usual. When you say 929, are you talking about 929 Eastern, or are you talking about right now at 1129 Eastern? Because those look similar. We got a high spike at 1129 on the SPY. I'm mountain too, but I always go by Eastern just as the standard. But yeah, at the 1129 Eastern, we did get a spike on the SPY and we did get a spike on the ES. They looked like a similar candle to me, but I have seen what you're talking about. I have seen the ES also diverging a little bit. All right, let's see if we can get back to another test of the VWAP here. Little pop on the VIX, another, looks like a new high of day on the VIX. Very odd to be making highs on the VIX and no lows on the index. Very odd. No lows at all. Just sideways. Just curious, Nick, where you're at, if you're mountain. I'm in Colorado Springs. We know each other from a past life. Oh, now you're being mysterious. Same town, huh? All right. Well, that's awesome. All right, little test of our overnight high here. Facebook message a couple of weeks ago. Don't need the help anymore, but that's who I am. I am so sorry. I must have missed it. I am not great on Facebook, but I will go take a look at it and say hi. I apologize, but thanks. All right, VIX is still wanting to climb here a bit. 19.3. I think we should get a break and a strong move out of this range, but honestly, I'm 50-50 on which way we go. We could get a fast rug pull, or we could get a sharp push up to a new all-time high. I think, honestly, I'm 50-50. We could go either way. All right, sitting at 71.23 on the SPX. And I'll show you that zone again. That's the same resistance that I marked off. Right in the zone. Right there. So I just added, okay, there's a little push to almost to the VWAP. This feels like the squeeze. Let's see what we get. Daniel, buy calls and puts and cut the loser. Well, that's one way to do it. We don't know for sure that we're going to get a strong move. It just feels that way. So we can't necessarily trade on that. But as far as what you're talking about, calls and puts, a straddle, it's called straddling the market. It's being on both sides of the market at the same time. And if you're buying the option, you're not the seller, you're the buyer, you are going to need for one to outpace the other. And so if you buy them both at the money or at the same strike, you're going to pay roughly the same price. They're going to move roughly the same direction away from each other. So you're kind of at a break even until you get to the 100-point mark. So once one side has gone over 100% gain, then you can capitalize on the difference between the one that lost 100% and the one that won more than 100%. That's when you're anticipating a large move. You can also capitalize between, let's say, a small discrepancy. So maybe this one drops 40% while this one it makes 60%. So you could make that money in that discrepancy if you're fast enough to get in and out of both of them at the same time. Doesn't usually work that way. I'll be honest. The ones that lose money tend to lose money faster than the ones that gain money. It's just the way the market makers do it, right? We don't have a lot of control over how they price those options, but that is how they do it. So I personally do not trade both sides of the market at the same time. I don't think it's a good idea. But if you're trading something like an FOMC and or a big data play or earnings play, you might be able to make money on it. It's possible. If you do that, I would definitely set limits so that you don't get, when they do those quick spikes, you don't miss it, right? But that's kind of what that strategy is, Daniel. I don't personally do that, but there are people that do, and you can make it work. All right, sitting right here still at the overnight high. We just aren't going anywhere. But our VIX is giving us teeny little moves here. Sitting at 19.39. Pretty much at our high of day. Again, super odd to have the VIX sitting at high of day while the market is moving sideways. Super odd. I'm going to take a look at our gamma one more time. All right, test to the VWAP here. Let's see if we can break it this time. We've not been able to break it today. We broke it once or twice, but came right back over it. Oh my God. This is so frustrating. Testing. There we go. Looks tired. Yeah, it looks a little tired to me too. All right, gamma still positive with a call wall at 710 and a put wall at 707. All right, let's see. There's not a lot of negative gamma today, not a lot of put gamma. All right, little break of the VWAP here. They have really messed with the options price here. Since I got in. All right, let's get a drop. There we go. Bitcoin at 79.4K. Wow. All right. Let's see. Hopefully they don't recover this VWAP again because I really would love to see this drop. All right, David, now that we're inching up for a while above the VWAP, below it inching up for the first time. Notice that we were inching up for a while above the VWAP, but now we are below it and inching up for the first time. Okay. Another pop on the VIX up to 19.5. All right, back up over the VWAP. All right, looks like a little recovery here. Found some support around the same drop point as 903. Yep, I agree. Very similar because the bottom of the wick is the bottom of the candle right here. You're exactly right, Nick. Yep. Yeah, I knew what you meant. I knew what you meant. 1103. You're exactly right. It did find support there. So really, when you zoom out, it's just still the same range. Even though we came down and tested the VWAP, we're just still right back in the same range. We haven't really broken it. It did make a little bit of a lower low here, right? So we can sort of feel like it might be coming down a little bit, but not really much. We're just right back in range. All right, VIX sitting at 19.4. You're starting to get some little bitty green MACD here, so we might roll up. Let's see what we get. Again, I wouldn't trade to the upside because it's limited. Now, it can break right up through there for sure, but this upside is limited for me. I wouldn't trade from here to here if we had up signals. And of course, the downside is limited as well, so that's why we haven't taken a trade yet. Excuse me for just 1 minute. I apologize. So sorry about that. Thank you for being patient with me. All right, and here we come down. Another test of the VWAP. All right. Let's see if this will break this time. It's just bouncing right here. And it's what it's been doing all morning. We broke it here and bounced, broke it here and bounced, and then we bounced here and here. So now it's given us another. But you know what? I do think it's going to break. All right, David, bought the SPX put for 71.10. Average down to make my cost 12. It's now 7. More worried that I am a little too far out of the money. I hear you, David. Yeah, it's 71.10. You're at 12 and it's at 7. That's a tough one, David. I think if we can break the VWAP and continue dropping, you'll be okay. But the problem is we just haven't been able to do that yet. All right, sitting right on it. Cost being at 12. Yeah, that is tough. You're right. All right, let's see what the Qs are doing here. Kind of the same thing. The Qs are much farther away from their VWAP, but still very similar sideways movement here. Really similar. Need to get below 7,100 to break even, basically. I think need to cut my losses or sell half. I hear you, David, and it's never wrong to take the stop. I always recommend taking the stop, especially if your position size is too big. All right, another bounce here off the VWAP yet again. Yeah. Yeah, the conversation about the drastic moves the market is making, and it has been. I can't tell you how to manage your risk, David, but I think if it were me, I would wait for a break of the range. If it pops out through the top, I'd go ahead and cut the losses. And if it pops down through the bottom, give it some room and see if you can get closer on your, get your losses more manageable. I think is how I would handle it. But, I can't give you advice on how to do that, but that's probably what I would consider is just wait for the range to break one way or the other. And so the top is kind of right here at 710, the bottom kind of right in here at 709. So it's about a 10-point range on the SPX. Expect a good move here at 12. I hope so. I hope so, David. It's definitely been sideways for a good while. So now it did do that sideways day. Remember, what day was that? Was that Monday? It just ran sideways all day. And I kept thinking it was going to pop one way or the other. It never did. 2 days ago. Was it? Yeah, Monday. Yeah. Yep, Monday. I kept thinking it was going to pop one way or the other, and it never did. It just stuck right in this little range, and we created this doji on the daily candle. So, I suppose that could happen here as well, that we really don't pop the range. But I'm gonna give it a little room to see if we can. Yeah, Monday. Yeah, exactly, David. So again, it could happen today again, but we'll see. I'm going to give it a little time. Of course, what they're doing in the meantime is just bleeding out that time value. So that always stinks when you're in an option trade. All right, we are getting close to the end of the stream. So unfortunately, thoughts on UNH? Oh, yeah, it's beautiful. UNH is beautiful, Craig. It has been, I think, undervalued for quite some time. It got beat up a while back. Let's take a quick look at the daily. I love UNH. Took a little dip right here. It had a nice results after earnings. Take a look at that. Nice earnings on UNH. Here was the earnings call on the 21st, which was yesterday. And we got this nice gap up. Let me zoom in because this VWAP makes it hard to see the candle. Nice gap up, and then it pulled back a little, but today has been nice and strong, almost 3%. So looking really good to me. And again, I think UNH has been undervalued for a very long time. It's one of those, you could almost say, too big to fail type. We are coming up to resistance on UNH, which is right here at 357. And let's zoom out a little bit. In the big picture, it's still down from where it's been. Let me give it a little bit broader time frame here. Let's look at the 10-year. All right. So you can see that UNH made an all-time high back in 2024. And then it got really beat up. And there were a lot of things that happened with the CEO getting murdered, and then the other one walked away. And, you know, they're a dirty company. I'll say that. Healthcare in general is just such an awful, terrible business. I think they're just whatever. But as a company, I think it got beat up pretty good. And I think that it's been undervalued for quite some time. So I do think it's going to continue to move up eventually. And the thing I like about healthcare in general is that healthcare is a defensive sector or stock. You can think of it as defensive because when the market comes down, which of course it's not right now, but when it does, usually healthcare does pretty well. It doesn't sink at the same level and sometimes even rises when the market comes down because it's defensive, right? Everybody needs healthcare. So that's one of the main reasons why I like UNH. I'm going to continue to hold it. I'm holding it via credit put spreads, right? That's the way I'm trading. UNH has been through credit put spreads, and those have done very, very well. Usually we win them, very few that we lose. And I usually just roll it to the next one. And that's kind of what I've been doing. But it is a good hold, as David says. I think it is. So that's kind of my thoughts on UNH, Craig. Hopefully that helps. David likes the dividend up 18%. Great job, David. All right. And again, we are at the end of the stream. Let's talk about the rest of the day. I am looking for the range to break. I'm going to trade. We are down below the VWAP again. Yay. I'm going to trade whichever direction the range breaks. And when I say range, I'm not looking for to the tick, right? I'm looking for a zone, right? I want to see this range really break. I want to get lower than this low by a good bit, right? Or I want to get higher than this high by a good bit. If it goes in either one of those directions, I will trade that. I'll trade to the upside with a break of the top or the downside with a break of the bottom. In the meantime, I'm going to stay out of this range here in the middle and sit on my hands, which is the hardest part of trading. But that's what I'm going to do moving forward. And sorry we didn't get to take a trade today, but I had a good time with you anyway. We'll be back again here tomorrow at 11 a.m. Eastern. Thank you so much for your support. Thanks for being here. If you don't mind, a thumbs up and a subscribe to the channel is really going to help me grow, and I do appreciate it. So thank you, everyone. Nope, Craig, I'm not out of my puts yet. I think if we hit another dip down here, I will probably get out at a small loss. So, all right, guys, thank you so much for being here. We'll be back again tomorrow. Bye for now.